All right, if you guys are ready to get started, I will share my screen and open up this agenda. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So, welcome to the Ward 4 meeting of July 25th, 2022. I am Holly Hertzberg, Ward 4, Position 2, and Teresa Turk is here as well, Ward 4, Position 1. Woo, too far. Okay, let's just go through real quick and introduce ourselves. Let's just see who's on here. See if I can get a grid. Okay. Tim, you want to start us off?
Yep, so I'm Tim Shepard. I'm a lieutenant at the Fayetteville Police Department. I live on Salem in Ward 4, and I'm the representative for the police department.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Hey everyone, I'm Wes. I live on Mountain View Drive in Ward 4 across from Owl Creek School. This is the first virtual meeting I've attended. I did go to one about 2 years ago in person, but happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Wes. Good to see you.
I'm Lisa, excuse me. I'm Lisa Orton, and I live on Hostel Road in Ward 4.
Hi, Lisa. Good to have you here. Kyle, are you here?
I am. I'm fighting with my audio and trying to figure out how to hear y'all, but I'm here. Hopefully I'll be more useful in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, let me minimize this here.
Hey, Holly, did you get the email I sent you for some of Wes's questions?
I did not get a chance to look at that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we might want to add those questions onto the agenda.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, Wes, what questions did you have?
I just wanted to know if there was an update that you could provide from the state on the progress of the Weddington redesign and interchange.
Okay.
And also I wanted to talk about the street lighting and trail lighting situation on Ruppel on the south end where I live.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle, do you have anything you would like to add?
I think I got my tech troubles and my permissions sorted out. Thank you for being patient with me. Yes.
Oh, sure.
It is that time of the year where CDBG money starts getting allocated, and I've had some questions from organizations in the community about access to that. There's a notice for public comment out about reallocating that has caused a stir, and I've heard from some of the folks on the resident steering committee for that they're a little in the dark and not entirely sure what's going on with that reallocation. So I was just sort of hoping we could get an update on how the CDBG advisor or the community, I forget what we called it, the advisory board for that, how they're functioning and what sort of feedback they've been able to give to the council.
Perfect. I will add that on there. Okay. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the agenda? All right. We will get started then. We'll go ahead and start with number 2 since we did the agenda additions. Number 2 was brought up to me by Kyle Smith. We talked about the Mount Comfort resurfacing. So I wanted to just give everybody an update on what Chris had shared with me. He said that we had resurfaced the area from I-49 to Raven in about 2019. And so the resurfacing that's going on now is from Raven to Ruppel. And so just wanted to update everybody on what was going on there. And if it seems redundant, kind of is very close, but it's a different section. So, does anybody have any questions on that? All right, we will go on to number 3, sidewalk project update. This was something we talked about on the last transportation committee meeting. So I wanted to just provide you guys with this grid, what projects were completed, what's pending. Let me see if I can zoom this in so y'all can see a little better.
That's great.
You can see that okay? Whoa. Let me move this. Okay. So let's see. There was one, oh, the Salem Road one. I think that was the only one that was, oh, Salem Road and Mount Comfort were the 2 that I was looking at for Ward 4. And then we've got list of maintenance repairs that have been completed. And then below here, these are the proposed 2023-2025 sidewalk projects. There's a section from Salem to Weddington that's going to be fixed or connecting the missing access ramps. And I think that's the only one that will affect Ward 4. If you guys see anything else that you would like to look more at, or you want me to send you that in the packet, I can send you guys that email so you can study it a little bit more. Okay, if nobody has any questions on that, we'll move to number 4. And I was going to ask Teresa if you could do just a brief update on the rate study, just kind of give us a synopsis of what has been going on with that and what's been going on at the council.
Sure. Thanks, Holly. Yeah, you guys probably didn't pay attention the other, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? I guess it was last Tuesday. We had a public hearing about the rate study. The rate study was done by Black and Veatch. They use this methodology that I guess is accepted within the country as the methodology to use to figure out what the cost of service is for water and sewer. So they crunched all those numbers. They came up with a cost for Fayetteville residents and then for each surrounding town where we provide water or sewer to. So like Farmington, West Fork, Elkins, all of those. And generally speaking, all of the little communities, their rate was going to go up. So that was kind of a surprise to them. I think we probably should have been out there communicating with them way earlier in advance. They were not very happy with that. But one thing that happened is that the contract that the city of Fayetteville had with Farmington had actually expired. So that was a brand new piece of information. And a lot of the rates for Farmington were based on that expired contract. So the bottom line is we followed Arkansas state law. We presented the information. We had a hearing. So we kind of checked those state law boxes. But the city's going to need to go in and negotiate that contract with Farmington and get that figured out. And hopefully there can be some similarity between all of these other surrounding towns that we have, so that the city doesn't really craft a deal with West Fork that's really different from Farmington unless there's a really good reason to have it be different. And so we can have some uniformity in there. And then also so we can have some uniformity in the cost of service. The rate for what Fayetteville was going to pay was actually going to go down slightly. So we may consider keeping that cost of service similar or at the same level, and then making the impact less for these surrounding towns that are really not very large users, relatively speaking, of our water and sewer services. So stay tuned. We'll probably have something back in December, maybe even January. A lot of it depends on how long it takes to negotiate that contract with Farmington and kind of look at some of the other contracts and see if we can't have those be a little bit more in the same, very similar to each other. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, it's kind of dry. It's very dry. So,
Thank you for doing that update, Teresa. I wanted to make everybody aware that what we passed last week was just the fact that we had a public hearing. So I had some people contact me and say, I can't believe you passed the rate study. I was like, well, we didn't really do anything. We just said that we were having our public hearing. So I wanted to make that really clear that we have not decided anything about rates. This is we just passed a resolution stating that we had a public hearing. So.
that's right, Holly. I'm glad you reiterated that. The other thing is the way the study is structured right now, these rate increases are supposed to go into effect January 2023. I bet those will be delayed because if we don't have the rates come out until December, I'm sure there's going to be some back and forth to discuss on that. They probably will not go into effect until much later, if not later 2023, maybe even early 2024. So, but we have not passed any rates yet.
Nope, we will make it very clear. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments on number 4? All right, let's move to number 5. This is the rezone on 1678 West Palmer from RSF4 to RIU. And Teresa, I wanted to add this to the agenda. Teresa, do you have any questions or comments?
I'd kind of heard from some neighbors about this rezoning, and so I wanted to make sure that we got it on the agenda, even though it's only, I believe it's at the Planning Commission right now. I don't even think that they've heard from it, but I thought this might be an opportunity if people wanted to speak that they could discuss it right now.
Okay. Is there anybody on here who would like to discuss this rezone going to planning?
Well, I just want to mention that, here in University Heights, a lot of us want to stay low density. And so we are really against individual parcels moving to higher density like RIU, because that sets a precedence. And the university is pushing into our neighborhood as is, and we have traffic issues already, And so anyway, but I posted it to the University Heights listserv to let people know about it, and hopefully people living closer to that area will start, sending feedback to the Planning Commission. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. Anybody else have anything they would like to add? Okay, Teresa, anything you'd like to add on that item?
Just, I've been hearing what Lisa has said, that people are not, they're generally against that. They want a lot more information on it. And it's in the early, it's with the Planning Commission. So I've suggested that people reach out to Planning Commission or to planning staff to get additional information on that.
Oh, I forgot to mention that some of the conversation in the University Heights listserv is about, the students that more than 3 unrelated occupants, and in some houses, some houses with students, they're just totally fine and quiet, like my neighbor. But around the corner, it's just really difficult, like for Ethel Simpson and some of those people, when there are multiple vehicles and parking on your narrow street. This happens at Hartman too, which is right where I think Palmer intersects Hartman, but on Hartman also, there's like no parking. You're not supposed to park on the street because it's narrow, and cars are parking. These students are parking on the street, and it's, if there was emergency vehicle, it would have trouble getting through. So anyway, that's an issue too. It's like, I think some people are frustrated that it's hard for the city to enforce, this thing about no more than 3 unrelated occupants, and also to enforce no parking on streets that have the sign that says no parking. Students often just go ahead and park, and it's just really frustrating, for the longtime residents.
So Tim, could you talk about your process? I know that when you get a call about, cars on the street, I know that probably is a lower priority than some of the serious crime that might be going on, but could you kind of enlighten everybody about how that works with the police department?
So we'll respond to it. It really is one of the lowest priorities of calls we go to, because we're staffing with about 9 to 10 officers for a city of 100,000. So obviously, there's other calls that take precedence, but we do go out there all the time. We typically will issue warnings the first time around, and we do issue tickets as well. So the problem with the college student situation is right when we get a handle on it in a semester, the turnover starts with the next semester, and the education process starts completely over. So that is a real problem for those neighborhoods. And, I take tons of complaints on it. We try to address it as best we can. And really to keep it on a priority, we have to have people continuing to call in or ask us to do that, because those issues are all over the city, not just in several locations. And it's just really hard to keep it a priority. So, Lisa, if you have those issues, feel free to reach out to me separately if you're not getting a good response, just calling the police department. And I'll try to make it a priority more so. Because like I said, we have those parking complaints multiple times a day, really.
Should they email you personally? Because I can let my neighborhood know.
Yeah, in this ward, it might be better just do that. And that way I can give a little bit extra resources to it and go out there and look at it myself. Because I know those areas have been a continual problem for many years. So, and to be honest though, with those college students, every semester we're gonna be starting over. So, but we can see what we can do to try to help it speed it up.
And what's your email?
It's T Shepard, TSHEPARD at Fayetteville-AR.gov.
Okay, great. I'll let the neighborhood know.
Yes, ma'am.
So Tim, do you all do you participate in like the U of A orientation or anything like that?
No, we don't.
Okay. I just wondered because, they've got that big orientation process and I'm sure it's really jam-packed with important information, but that we've got a lot of folks coming in from small towns and they're probably the acclimation to Fayetteville is probably challenging, being the second largest town in Arkansas.
I could see if our community oriented policing division, they may do something like that. I don't think they do, but maybe we can start doing that, or maybe U of A could help us out a little bit.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, there's just seems like there's so many things that would be helpful to new folks in town.
Tim, do you have a way to track who you offer or who you issue warnings to versus who you issue tickets to?
Oh yeah, all of that data is tracked. We can see anybody we come in contact with historically in our database. We have very powerful record management systems.
Okay, good deal. I just wondered if there was a way to keep track of, if this was a second warning or however that worked. So thank you. And I appreciate you being willing to be involved on a more personal level. I appreciate it. All right. Anybody have any other questions on number 5? Okay, number 6, let's go to the Weddington update. Wes, do you have any specific questions or concerns?
Well, no, not anything specific, although, trying to find information from the state on the update of this is a little taxing and a little hard to do. So I just wonder if you guys have heard anything about a timeline. It looks like construction is finally starting to ramp up. They're doing a lot more right now. But I just wonder, like, where we are. Is there a good website to even look at, or how do we get information on it?
So I don't feel super confident that I know enough to answer those questions, but what I can do is email Chris Brown and ask him, because he's going to be able to contact the state. Can I get your email so I can send his response back to you?
Yeah, Chris is actually a friend of mine, so
perfect.
He'll probably get a chuckle out of this because I do email him a lot about this already.
Okay.
Wes.Shirley15@gmail.com.
Okay.
Wes, I know we had a hard time finding information on the 112 expansion and these state projects. I don't know, the state doesn't update stuff very often, but Chris is definitely the man. So yeah, he's the one that will know the most information.
We
Good.
actually have our next transportation committee meeting tomorrow as well, so I can mention that to him and see if he might have something to share.
Good. It'll be good coming directly from the city council versus rather than me just emailing him. So maybe it looks like it's a little more official.
Sure.
So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to do that. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to item 7, street trail lights on Ruppel.
Yeah, so that's my second topic I wanted to just ask about. So when the north end of Rupel got extended, the lighting is well lit, it's safe, it's aesthetically pleasing, it looks really nice. However, on the end where I live, it is still as dark as a field as it was when it was first put in. There's a lot more traffic on our end on this side. There's a lot more construction. There's a new school going in. And I just wonder if it's been considered from the city council that this needs to be lit just as equally well as the north end of the extension. Because to be quite honest with you, in the winter time, it's not possible really to walk around. It's too dark, it's too dangerous. There's too much traffic going on. And the roundabouts have been here for 3 or 4 years and people still have issues with them. So I just wonder if you can take that as a follow-up or maybe find out what you can on maybe getting some lights on this end of our end of Rupel.
Sure. I think that's a really good point. I think that we definitely could use some lighting out there.
Especially with the school going in. So Holly, I'm not on the transportation committee. Do you guys talk about street lighting like this, or is that more on the active transportation subcommittee? I just don't know.
We do talk about it on transportation. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can bring that up tomorrow as an agenda addition.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. I will do that, and then I will update you on what we talk about tomorrow night.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, number 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody else have any other questions on number 7? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, we'll go on to number 8, CDBG Advisory Board update. Teresa, do you know anything about this?
Just a little bit, because I've had some people reach out to me. My understanding is all of this is pretty much governed by federal law, that their process is through the federal, that's the governing law, if you will, about these funds. And so that's why they're, having these public meetings and the 30-day comment period and all of those things that, that are kind of outside of the city. I understand, Kyle, and maybe I don't know if you've heard this or not, but these funds, if they don't get used, they're going to go away, and that there were only 2 applicants for the funding before. And so those funds weren't used. And so they're being redirected to something that I think Yolanda thinks will be funded so that the city won't lose those funds. And that's pretty much all that I know. And hopefully that's accurate. So
yeah, and that was always one of the challenges with HUD money, is that it is tied up in all the federal guidelines. and if you remember when we were passing that, there was an allowance to they had to do one of these comment periods to adjust the HUD approved process to allow for this committee, and that was one of the contingencies that was part of the ordinance y'all adopted. So what adopting or creating that committee did was set some city policy for how we comply with the HUD guidelines. And I hope y'all will pay attention when these recommendations come through. City code says that committee is supposed to be providing the venue for some of those comment periods. And it's problematic if the people in that committee don't know that there are comments they should be having. In fact, my understanding is they've had some of their monthly meetings canceled for lack of an agenda, just to find out weeks later that something like this should have been a pretty major agenda item for them. So I just ask y'all to take a look at that ordinance and what's required for the city to be complying with its own oversight rules on that.
Well, as you know, there's not really a city representative on, or city council representative on there. So, so that kind of makes it challenging in some ways to track certain things.
Yeah, those are questions you would have to ask whenever a recommendation is coming forward, whether or not it has been through the appropriate process before you approve it.
I actually did. I had a conversation with Yolanda, and she actually said that they had discussed it and it had been presented, because I had heard from some board members that they hadn't heard about it. So there was a kind of a disconnect.
There's a disconnect there. Yeah.
Yeah. But we should take a look at that again. I mean, that's the newest committee, or maybe the second newest after the historic Black marker committee or cemetery committee. So
and I think you're on the nominated committee still, right? So you've gotten to have a hand in picking the folks that are on there. You know, there are some dedicated community members who are well connected to the needs of folks that CDBG is supposed to serve. And so we're doing ourselves a disservice if we're not using their expertise.
I agree. I agree. So yes, we did not have a huge amount of people applying to be on that committee. I'll tell you that. I do think we should probably look at that a little bit more closely, because you know there was some ambiguity. There was some, I guess, probably some questions on our part about exactly how the committee was supposed to function, which I think is pretty normal when you have a brand new committee. So,
yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about number 8? Okay, let's go to number 9 then, Markham Hill. Lisa, do you have any update on Markham Hill?
Well, I think we're hopeful. We have some ideas of how we might be able to have a solution that everyone would be happy with, the current owners in the city and residents. So we're looking into those options. So I think we're optimistic that we can save Markham Hill from development and keep it a forested area. So that's, I guess that's all I can say right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. All right. As we're going through here, did anything come to mind? Anything that you guys want to discuss? Any additions that you'd like to do or to add last minute?
I don't have anything to add, but I want to make sure that people know that those American Recovery Act funds, we're going to have a meeting on August 6th to go over those funds. I think we have $40 million of request, and I don't know, I've lost count, maybe $14 million to allocate. So there's a big demand with a relatively small pot of money, but that'll be on August 6th.
Teresa, is there public comment on August 6th, or is that just for the review?
You know, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know yet. We should ask Susan how that's going to play out. If we're going to take public comment, or if it's just a meeting and then we'll have another meeting that will allow public comment, or I really don't know the process.
Okay, I can email her and ask.
Yeah. Because there's going to be a lot to decide, and I'm sure we're going to have I'm sure it's going to be very difficult, because I'm guessing that all these projects are extremely worthy and needy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the next thing coming up, August 6th, ARPA fund discussion. Next for Ward 4 meeting, I have on our schedule, it's going to be August 29th, again at 6 p.m. Is that correct? Do we have any changes?
That's the date I've got.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or discuss?
I was just wondering if this is all that's at the meeting, or are there invisible people that are listening in?
Let me look.
I just wonder.
I am going to try to find, where's our panelist?
I see Sue Raymond's over here she might be listening in.
Yeah, we
Hey,
have,
Sue.
we
Well,
have one attendee. Everybody else is a panelist, so they're able to comment.
okay.
And,
Well,
I think you can get on, I think you can also view this on YouTube or something. So
later on or right now?
Both. I think.
I think so too. I think it's real time, and then also it's recorded for posterity.
Okay. Well, I mean, even if it was just a small number, it's still important, I think, to have these meetings, because it makes everybody feel like there's an opportunity to speak, if we want to speak, So I really appreciate you having these meetings, even though usually I can't make them because I'm in Tulsa singing in a barbershop chorus, but I'm free tonight, so I'm here. But I really appreciate you all doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And I appreciate you being here. Good to see you again.
Thanks.
Yeah, it gives us a chance to hear directly back from you all in a really informal way, as opposed to being at the city council where things are, kind of tense, or we're making decisions right then and there. So I appreciate hearing directly from you all.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you both for doing this.
Thank you for being here, Wes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, Tim, for being here too and giving us an update. You always do a great job. All right. If nobody has any other questions, we will see y'all again on August 29th.